Everyone, it's time to learn about a new and exciting Python module called Itertools. This module includes a lot of functions for working with iterable datasets, and we will see some of them in this lecture. I think this would be a great follow-up on the previous lecture about iterators and generators. Let's get into the Python interpreter and see what's the deal with Itertools. First, as always, we have to import the module so we can have all of its functions available in our namespace. So, from Itertools, import, and a star for all. Okay, for this lecture, I've chosen 7 Itertools functions to discuss and test in the interpreter. You will find all other functions in this module in a link I have attached to this lecture, so check out the additional section of this video for more info about Itertools. Now let's get to work and let's consider two lists to be the iterable datasets on which to work on. So let's say list 1 equals, and list 2 is 101, 102, 103, let's say uppercase X and uppercase Y. Okay, the first method is chain. This method simply takes several sequences and chains them together. Let's see this. So let's say chain of list 1 and list 2. Okay, what we got back is an iterator object. Now to see its contents, we can either loop over it and print each element, or just feed it to the list function. So let's test both methods. Let's say for I in chain of list 1 and list 2, colon, and just print I. Okay, so this way we have each element of the chain sequences printed out on the screen. Secondly, we can just do list of chain of list 1 and list 2, and we get the chain sequences as well. Nice. Next, the count function, so count, returns an iterator that generates consecutive integers until you stop it. Otherwise, it will go on forever. That's why you should use it wisely so you don't end up with an infinite loop and a huge computer resource consumption. So let me put this inside a for loop. So let's say for I in count of, let's say, 10 and 2.5, colon. Now let's specify a condition. So if I is less than or equal to 50, print I. Else, let's just break out of the loop. Okay, so for each element in the sequence returned by the count function, if that element is less than or equal to 50, then print it on the screen. Otherwise, just break out of the loop. Notice that I passed two values as arguments to the count function. The first value, in our case 10, is the starting point of the sequence, and the second value, in our case 2.5, is the step to increment by. This way, we get the numbers between 10 and 50 inclusively with a step of 2.5. So this is the result right here. The next function is cycle. This function returns an iterator that simply repeats the value given as argument infinitely. Again, if you use it in a program, you have to find a way to break out of the infinite loop. Otherwise, your program will crash. Let's see it in action. So let's say L equals range of, let's say, 11 and 16. Let's see L. So 11 through 15. Great. Let's say for I in cycle of L colon, and let's say print I. So as you can see, we got an infinite loop which cycles through the elements of list L. Use Ctrl C in the Python interpreter to break out of this loop. Now let's study the iFilter function. So iFilter. Remember the filter function we've seen in the lecture about map, filter, and reduce? Well, it works similarly to that function, meaning it will return the elements for which the function you give as an argument returns true. Let's check this out. Let me write this first. So iFilter of, let's write the function first, lambda x is less than 5, comma, and now the list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so first you write the function name, then in between parentheses you enter two arguments. The first argument is the function you want to consider, in our case lambda x is less than 5. I hope you remember lambda functions from earlier in the course. The second argument is the iterable sequence you want to apply the function to. So this is a list right here. The final result should be the elements of that list for which the lambda function returns true, meaning all the elements in the list which are less than 5. Let's see if I'm right using the list function on the iterator returned by iFilter. So let's use this, add the parentheses at the end, and list of this will return 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, great. This is correct. Now let's look at another function, imap. Imap is another function from Itertools and works very similar to the map function we saw in this course. It simply takes a function and a sequence as arguments and applies that function to every element in the sequence. Now if you look at this the other way around, you can also say that imap takes every element in the sequence and feeds it as argument to the function. Let's do a small test. So let's say imap of lambda x times 10, and the sequence will be the list generated by a range of 5. Okay, so we've applied this simple lambda function to each value in the list generated by a range of 5, so elements 0 through 4. Now let's apply the list function on this iterable to see the results. So list. So we got all the elements in the list multiplied by 10. Okay, this is great as well. Now let's see another function, iSlice. Now remember list slices or string slices? This does the same thing. You can even specify a starting point in the sequence, an endpoint, and a step, just like we did with slices thus far. First, let's consider the list generated by a range of 10 and slice it in the old-fashioned way. So, range of 10, okay, 0 through 9. Let's say range of 10 starting from 2 up to 9 with a step of 2. So we start the slice at element 2. We slice the list up to but not including element 9 with a step of 2. So these two at the end. The result is the list right here. Now let's do the same thing using iSlice. So let's say iSlice of range of 10 starting from 2 up to but not including 9 with a step of 2. Let's do a list on this. Okay, the result is identical, which is what we wanted in the first place. The last function we're going to talk about is izip. This function combines the elements of multiple sequences into tuples. The final result is an iterator on which we can apply the list function, the tuple function, or a for loop. So let's go ahead and test it. Let's define three iterable sequences, a string, a tuple, and a list. Let's say A equals the string ABC, B equals a tuple, let's say 1, 2, and 3, and C equals a list, 10, 20, and 30. Now let's use the izip function to combine their elements. So izip of A, B, and C, A, B, and C. Now let's use a for loop on this iterator object. So for I in izip of A, B, and C, colon, print I. Okay, pretty nice. We have the elements of different data types combined into tuples. Now if you want to have this as a list of tuples, just apply the list function. So list of izip of A, B, and C. Okay, we get a list of tuples. Or if you want to get a tuple of tuples, use the tuple function. So instead of list, just type tuple. Okay, now you got a tuple of tuples. Pretty cool, I think, and useful too. I hope you had fun with Itertools. Don't forget to check out the link in the attachment for further reading on this topic.